of weeks. I can tell you we both really very much like being around Colin. He seems like he's in a real good place. So some positive, just a lot of positivity out of there, Schrager. Sounds
There
like.
is. I tend to go with Ian on this, where everyone's having a nice positive talk, but I don't foresee Colin Kaepernick in a 49ers jersey because of the contract situation. I think you can't pay him what he's making right now, so that's one thing that I think they have to restructure. So, and I don't know if Colin wants to be there anymore. I mean, maybe it is a fresh start for him. Maybe he says it, but it's still the same ownership. It's still the same fan base. It's still the same hotbed of a market where they don't necessarily want Colin Kaepernick as their quarterback anymore. So I look at it from both ways. If I am Kyle and John Lynch, I'm thinking let's start anew. We've got the number 2 overall pick. He mentioned Kirk Cousins. You've got guys like Brian Hoyer who could be a free agent, who's had success with him. With Kyle Shanahan, you've mentioned Matt Schaub. All these names are possible to come back into camp with Kaepernick as your quarterback when you fired the general manager who drafted him, the head coaches, multiple, 3 of them now who have had him. I just don't think you're going to go in and have a new general manager, new head coach, and then Colin Kaepernick as the quarterback. I think there are about 30 different alternatives that make more sense.
It seems like everything I'm reading, it wasn't like positive, like, oh, we're going to have you back, it's going to be great, like, you know, let's blow smoke or whatever. It seemed like an honest conversation. Maybe they got together and it was, this is what it is, this is what it is, and they both left with some reality.
It seems like John Lynch is always positive, right? I haven't worked with him like you, Peter, but he's a very positive, rah-rah guy. Of course. He's got an awesome job, too. He's so excited.
Kaepernick also, for the inside stuff, he doesn't have the same agent anymore. Got rid of his agent. He's currently unrepresented, and he's looking for aid. And there have been people who've been consulting with him and all this stuff, but it's a new Colin. It's not the Colin Kaepernick from 2013 that took him to the Super Bowl. It's a different guy, and Colin, he'd be the first to tell you, I don't think he necessarily is the same person that he was then, and maybe starting anew is
19.4 mil left on that one,
a lot of money.
one deal.
Yeah. I want to hear what Nate has to say on this. In my opinion, Shanahan and Lynch don't get together and have the ultimate buddy meetup and go out to the West Coast and change their lives so they can go with Colin Kaepernick. That, to me, does not seem like the plan. The other thing, too, this is a 6-year deal. It's a long deal. There's no pressure early on. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're not like, we got to win right now. We need a guy with
the coach and GM both got guaranteed 6 years.
6 years.
That's a good point.
They could hang around forever. Let's draft a rookie. Let's get anybody.
Well, there was a Schrager's one to watch even today that seemed like
exactly.
I think Deshaun Kaiser, a Notre Dame kid, Jed York's a Notre Dame guy. I think there's a lot of connections to Kaiser there, and then Trubisky and Watson and Mahomes and Webb. There are a to rookies that you could take.
There's no weapons there.
There's a lot wrong.
To get them.
That roster is a nightmare right now.
They definitely have some room to breathe and build, like you said. You know, that 6-year contract, there's a lot to be said about the organization giving them time to build something special. You know, when we were in the commercial break and we're talking about the topic, you know, initially I said, I believe he's going to be back. And what I love about this show is that we can speak honestly, honestly in real time. And with this conversation, now I'm leaning towards, Colin Kaepernick might be gone.
I like it, Nate.
But let me throw this out there. When I was with Kyle Shanahan in Cleveland, and it was a brief moment in my career, brief moment in his career, Brian Hoyer was the guy. And Brian Hoyer was consistent. Brian Hoyer was the prototypical quarterback of everything that Kyle Shanahan wanted. But Johnny Manziel got drafted, and the excitement, the athleticism, the splash plays, just the X factor that Johnny Manziel brought to that offense was something that Kyle Shanahan liked. He didn't necessarily love because he wanted a guy that knew the playbook like the back of his hand, but he also appreciated a guy that can get behind center and something magical can happen.
He likes a little wild
card. You say like, which
reminds
me of you like that, which reminds me of Kirk Cousins, which reminds me of Kyle Shanahan. And if the Redskins aren't putting a ring on it, is it possible Cousins makes his way to the Bay Area?
Absolutely. You'd have to trade something. I mean, I don't know if it's the 2nd overall pick or if it's a player and it's the 33rd overall pick. I would say this, though, with all this. The fascinating thing to me is not so much do the Niners want Kaepernick. I think the Niners are going to turn the page, and that's just my opinion. What's next for Colin Kaepernick? We go through these quarterbacks. We're talking about guys like Hoyer and Schaub, like they're valuable options to start. What is Colin Kaepernick now going into 20? Even with a new team, is he a starting quarterback? Is he more attractive than Romo to you? Is he more attractive than Cutler to you?
I remember Chris Sims coming on here and saying that he thought that Colin Kaepernick was done. I disagreed when we were talking, and I still disagree. He's athletic. The guy went to the Super Bowl. Like, at one point, he was a redefinition of the quarterback position, the right-handed Randall Cunningham. I mean, we thought that he was the next up, the next generation. So if he can recapture that magic, and what I like about Lynch talking, he said he's in a good place. Kyle Shanahan said he's in a good place right now. If he can recapture that magic, get healthy, get to a place where he feels dominant again, he could come in and be a number 2, and then if the number 1 quarterback on whatever team has a mistake,
Real talk.
gets hurt.
Does the off-the-field stuff affect him, you think?
I want
I
to
don't
ask
think
you
so.
that.
We're a forgiving league. If you can make plays, you can make plays.
All right, you deal with most personnel guys, front office more
Yeah.
than anything. Are there teams that would be loath to bring him in because of the national anthem thing?
I don't think so.
No? You think that's a clean slate? The fan bases don't mind some
Again,
conservative.
I haven't polled 32 GMs.
I know, of course not.
I just think the initial knee-jerk was, I don't want him on my team. It's a distraction. He handled it really well this year. And the end result of that whole thing, we had a round table with all the reporters in L.A. doing it. I think that it was a positive thing for the league that there was someone speaking out. Now, of course, people watching at home and on Twitter say, get the politics out of here.
Not
I get
positive
it.
there.
Some markets it might not fly. San Francisco is a very liberal, progressive market.
sure.
Some markets that might not fly. If
very
he
true.
continues to be vocal, maybe it's not. But I think from a football sense, they'll bring him in, they'll meet him, and then he'll have to decide whether this is going to work.
And I keep mentioning like the lack of weapons. Maybe that works in his favor as far as being attractive to another team in the league. He did show some improvements in 2016. He had his career best touchdown to interception ratio. When you have when Jeremy Curley is your leading receiver and he doesn't have 700 receiving yards on the year, how were you set up
Imagine
on
him
that
with some
team? So
weapons.
imagine him, maybe, who
Hashtag
knows?
Imagine
Saying.
what, though?
And he can run.
What am I getting?
We know that.
You're getting the guy who went to the Super Bowl.
Coming off a shoulder surgery, coming off the injury.
Not as strong.
Is he the same?
guy.
He's 20 pounds lighter last year.
I mean, we've seen other quarterbacks in this league get to the playoffs. I mean, we're praising Tony Romo, and he hasn't been to the Super Bowl.
Nate, did you go all the way back? Now, you started the segment, you like him, now you're back.
Are you back on Kaepernick?
I'm back
We can
on
do it in
Kaepernick
real
now.
time.
But I'm back on Kaepernick in another jersey.